All right, boys, if you don't mind, I've got a little journey I'd like to take you on to kick us off. This is going to be a roundabout, so you're going to have to stick with me. As you know, I attended the University of Illinois. And at the University of Illinois, before I got there, long ago, many years ago, the kids at the University of Illinois got a little too rowdy on St. Patrick's Day. And so the school banned celebrating St. Patrick's Day. What? They said, we are no longer celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Anybody who goes out on St. Patrick's Day, you're in big trouble. We're going to have like cops everywhere. So the school banded together, and the kids declared an unofficial St. Patrick's Day. And even though that was decades ago, it is now the biggest holiday on campus. Unofficial is what we call it, which is short for unofficial St. Patrick's Day. I would like to dub today unofficial, because this is like St. Patrick's Day for me. Al and I both have our Guinnesses here because not only is football back, but on Saturday at noon, Florida State and Georgia Tech are going to kick off in the great country of Ireland. So cheers, boys.
Cheers.
To unofficial.
Let's do it.
I wish I had a clear glass. That was a bonehead move on my part.
Delicious.
Is University of Illinois one of those schools where like the kids soak, but they don't have sex? Because you sound like you went to like the Footloose.
That sounded like some
No, we now celebrate
Catholic school.
St. Patrick's Day like a normal school, but we've continued the tradition of unofficial.
Well, Lord knows you need more excuses to drink when you're in college.
College kids never have enough time to drink. So I'm glad we're putting something on the books to establish alcoholism.
That's like the best thing about college, and it's like totally a word of mouth thing. There's no like, you can't be like, what are like cool things at schools, and like that is not going to pop up. But that's a very unique thing for your school that like everyone who went there knows about, and no one who didn't go there knows about.
Well, now our listener knows.
There's my freshman year at Miami, we invented a holiday called Hug the Lake, and they still do it. We just passed out flyers and wrote on chalk like, "Come to the lake at this day, and we're gonna hold hands around the lake." I didn't like invent. Well, so it was one of my floor mates. So mine probably would have involved more drinking, but yeah, it's like shit like that just like sticks.
Was there an end game to hugging the lake, or was just like everyone holds hands and then they just?
It was just like a little social experiment to see if people actually showed up, and they did. People showed up.
College is the best.
All right, so Matt, I know you had some preseason questions that you want to talk about before we kick off on Saturday with those 4 games. Just a reminder, our picks are going to be given out on our website this year. We might still give a pick here and there on the pod, especially this week. There's only 4 games. We'll probably discuss Florida State, Georgia Tech at least a little bit, but generally singlelegparlay.com. Sign up for our newsletter. You'll get the picks straight to your inbox while they're hot and fresh.
It's the best. If you haven't signed up yet, what are you doing? It's free. And then if you hate our voices, that's okay. You can ignore them, and we'll give you all the picks. If you're here for the witty repartee that we all have, they're totally different. Please stay on and listen. But we'll put the picks and send them right to your inbox. You don't have to do shit.
We make money.
Open the email, place the bet, cash the check.
Yeah. Before we get started, I don't know if you saw the news. ESPN made an announcement today that on College Game Day, week 0, they're supporting people having signs. And why does that matter? Because Florida State fans are going to be mighty angry with the folks at ESPN, especially Reese Davis and Kirk Herbstreit, who said that Florida State did not deserve to be in the playoffs by any means last. So I'm really excited to see what signs pop up on College Game Day and how censored they will be, because I would imagine you'll see many signs of Kirk Herbstreit with the clown nose on. I hope so. I hope we take a Premier League level of hatred. Really celebrate European style by really hating the broadcasters. And if we don't, then I'll be disappointed in myself. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but it seems like the right thing. I'm glad they're not going to try to mute the signs at Ireland, because they're going to get some angry ones, I'm going to guess.
I feel like Kirk Herbstreit is kind of washed anyway. I mean, he's still pretty good, but he's not as good as he used to be. And I feel like, generally speaking, there should be like elections. Like they should be churning staff at ESPN. They should be keeping it young and fresh, because, you know, Lee Corso's gonna finally be off of that show, and the overall age is probably still gonna go up.
Is Corso officially off? Because he was still there sometimes last year. He didn't do most of it, but
physically,
he'd pop up from the dead every once in a while.
He might be there physically. I'm not sure.
Is there a chance he's Bernie at Weekend at Bernie's, and he rises up from the grave as soon as he hears college football bands playing music? He just sits there and gets ready for it, and then they may move his mouth like with some strings. He's like a giant marionette at that point.
I was gonna say they should have replaced him with a mascot of Lee Corso.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah, that would be really good.
I love that. Yeah, so I have an interesting stat for you guys. 22 of the last 23 seasons of college football, a team from the top 10 preseason has ended the season outside of the top 25. Last year, USC was that team. I think they started at 6th and had a challenging year by USC standards. Caleb Williams crying in the bleachers. We remember all the storylines that came. The AP just put out their top 10. If you guys had to guess in your esteemed college football minds, which team will end up outside of the top 25 that start in the top 10, who would you pick? Andy, I'll start with you.
Ole Miss.
Ooh, hating on them.
Ole Miss is at 6 right now, I believe. And it's less about...
that's a ripe pick.
It's less about Ole Miss for me and more about believing in the other teams. Got some perennial powerhouses, some real blue bloods.
It's a good one. Everyone, look, Ole Miss went all in this year in the transfer portal. They know all these college football teams now operate in 1-year windows, right? And they know if they have like the backbone, they will go crazy and spend because it costs a ton to get top talent out of the transfer portal and for 1-year rentals. And they went after it. Now, will it work? Has it ever worked for Ole Miss? I don't think so. It is an interesting pick. Al, do you have anyone?
Yeah, how juicy do you want it?
You can be as juicy as you want.
Hell yeah.
Michigan.
I kind of like that pick, too.
Yeah.
You want to go for it? You want to explain?
Yeah, well, I mean, they've got new coaching staff. That's going to be a significant drop-off from one of the best college football coaches. Probably, is it too spicy to say of our lifetime?
A Harbaugh?
Yeah, like he's like top 5 probably, right? I mean, I guess you could throw some of those old dudes in, like your Bowden and your Lou Holtz and whatnot, but I don't know, man. I think you could make an argument that Harbaugh gives those guys a run for their money. Maybe not a Bowden, but so maybe top 10, I would say comfortably.
Harbaugh's
a really good coach. Harbaugh's a really good coach. Yeah, it's hard to replace. And then also, they don't have J.J. McCarthy. So they're gonna have
neither do the Vikings, though.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ouch. So yeah, I just think they're gonna have a hard time. They still got talent, so they should still be good. But that's also, there's an influx of new good talent coming from the Pac-12 into the Big Ten. I haven't looked at Michigan's schedule offhand, so they could have a cakewalk. Who knows? My guess is they're gonna have more losses than you would think on a surface level.
So Michigan has 4 very challenging games this year on paper. Unfortunately, 3 of those 4 are in the Big House. They play Texas week 2, which that's a fucking game. That's a hell of a ball game. USC comes into town in September 21st. Oregon comes into town November 2nd, and then they go to Ohio State. So I agree with you. I think Michigan's a good choice. Their defense is going to be sick. Their front 7 is really good. That offense is a whole lot of question marks. Alex Orji will likely be the starting quarterback. Insert your laughs here at the last name Orji. Super fast, super good athlete, but I'll be curious to see how Sharon Moore uses him in the future. I don't know if that's like the right pick.
You're missing 2 of their big games. They play at Washington, which I know Washington lost their coach and their quarterback, but they're coming off a national championship. So they're not a nobody. And then they have to follow that up with at Illinois. Obviously, I'm joking.
Those are certainly 2 games. Those are certainly 2 games on their schedule.
They exist.
They sure do play them.
So if you see the top 10, there are 2 conferences well represented. The Big Ten and the SEC, that's 8 of them. You have Notre Dame, who's independent, and Florida State, who's ACC. Why I say that is I think all of those teams will likely get the opportunity to lose 4 games and stay in the top 25. And I don't think any of those teams are bad enough to lose 4 games. Not likely, right? Ole Miss, even Ole Miss, that's a good pick. I like it. Let me take a step even further. I think the top 4 teams are about as good as you're going to get, right? I think there's a huge separation between those top 4 teams and then 5 through 10. I like the Michigan pick. Alabama may not be good, guys. Have we considered they lost a lot of things to the transfer portal? They have to pay NIL now. A lot of kids were taking the Nick Saban discount. I don't know if they're any good, but I think even if they go 8-4, they'll probably end up in the top 25. Notre Dame is really interesting to me. Their schedule is the weakest shit I've ever seen. This is like the beauty of being an independent. Have you looked at their schedule? They play Louisville. They play Florida State. And Florida State is the hardest game on their schedule as far as ranked teams coming up this year. And that's not acceptable. They play USC at home. It's a real bad schedule. So I don't see a situation where they'll lose 3 games. I do see a situation where Florida State, I don't think Florida State's going to get the blessing of being able to lose 4 games. I don't think they will, but I can see 9-3 being a likely out. So I would sadly guess Florida State. I think they have a lot to replace as far as their wide receivers. They got 10 guys drafted. There's a lot of question marks there. I don't think it's likely, but that would probably be my pick. It would be Alabama or Florida State of those two. And it feels like sacrilege to say Alabama could be outside the top 25, but hey, it's a new era.
Oh, for sure. I think a lot more kids than I expected stayed at Alabama. I mean, I guess they've been like retired.
It's like the Kalen DeBoer effect, right? That's like landing the next best thing.
And Saban didn't go somewhere else where they can like follow him. So they would have just like scattered. So they definitely have a chance to not drop off as much as you might think, losing the second best coach of our lifetime after Harbaugh, apparently. But,
Yeah, they do have a pretty brutal schedule, though.
They play Tennessee. They play Georgia,
Oklahoma, LSU, Missouri.
I think they play Texas too, don't they? They get the harder. No, they don't. They have a harder SEC schedule. So I'll be interested to see what the fallout there is. Jalen Milroe will still be there. And Kalen DeBoer is going to drop some nice things with Jalen Milroe. But it's a different world. This ain't the Pac-12 anymore. This ain't Incarnate Word or wherever the hell he came from before that.
Yeah. I think, you could compare Alabama and Michigan situations, right? But I think Bama has the better coach currently. Bama has the better talent currently. And they are returning a quarterback who was pretty good.
They are.
That's why I picked Michigan over Bama. I wanted to pick Penn State, but their schedule is cakewalk.
Yeah, and they're going to be good. They're going to be Penn State. They're going to go 9-3 or 10-2.
Exactly, 9-3.
Just do Penn State shit. Not exciting at all. People are going to try to sell you that Penn State's really exciting. You should watch it. You don't need to watch it. You don't need to watch Penn State. There's nothing good about watching Penn State. You can watch Iowa. At least that's funny.
You're going to be forced to watch at least 3 Penn State games, and they're going to be ugly.
So similarly, right, there's inevitably going to be a team that no one has on their radar right now. They're not on the top 25, and preseason polls are dumb. Can we all agree with that? What's the point? It doesn't make any sense. Why don't we let the games play?
It's just vibes.
It's all vibes. But there's going to be a team that's going to sneak in and potentially get one of those playoff spots. I could start this if you want. I do think it's going to be tricky for a lot similar, like I said, the SEC and the Big Ten. A lot of those teams are going to stay in the top 25. And those losses are going to be less painful than other conferences. So I either have to figure out those, like the 5th or 6th best team in each one of those leagues, or I could try to assume I could find a Big 12 winner or an ACC winner that's not on the. I'm going to go with Iowa State here or Memphis. I think Memphis has a real good chance to be the group of 5 winner, and I think they're going to be considerable this year. They have a game against Florida State, but they should be really good in their conference. And Iowa State, I'm not messing around with Iowa State. I could see Iowa State being a good Big 12 team. Matt Campbell knows what he's doing. He's always a very good coach. He has a good quarterback. Their defense is always pretty sound. They just need to win 10 games and get to a Big 12 championship and win that beast, and they'll be in the playoffs. So those would be the 2 I would go for.
We're talking a team outside the top 25 that could potentially make the playoff.
Currently, yes.
Okay.
And remember, the best group of 5 team in ranking gets to go on. Do you guys have anyone you like or if you had to pick a team outside the top 25 to make the playoffs, who would you choose?
I want to hear what Andy has to say because I got a handful of teams that I can't choose between.
I'm going to go with UTSA. They're also in the AAC with Memphis.
Meet.
So I think if Memphis doesn't win the AAC, they're the next most likely. They have some pretty good continuity. Jeff Traylor's been there for 4 years. McCown is back at quarterback, and they've got a pretty easy schedule, all things considered. Their game against Memphis is probably the toughest one on their schedule, other than Texas, which is just going to be a loss. That's
a tough day at the office.
Yes, and it's at Texas too. So, but they get Memphis at home, and if they can win that, I think they've got a good chance to win the AAC. And I like them to make the playoff. I like them to get destroyed in whatever playoff matchup they have, but take a flyer on them to make the playoffs.
So I'm going to throw out 3 teams here: Boise State,
Stock is down on Boise State. Can you guys hear what happened? Malachi Nelson, all-world 5-star recruit. He went to USC last year. The writing was on the wall. He wasn't going to get the starting job when in the bowl game they went to Miller Moss. So he transferred to Boise State. So everyone's stock was so high on Boise State because they're a good team in the Mountain West. They should be better than everyone. And then you added a 5-star quarterback. I cannot remember the quarterback who actually is going to be the starter, but I'm going to show you a picture on here. and you're going to laugh.
Is it Maddox Madsen?
It is Maddox Madsen. He's like not the most fit. Like, and granted, I could have been like,
He looks like a baby. He looks like a grown baby.
Not saying they still can't be very good in the Mountain West, but stock is a little bit down on because everyone expected Malachi Nelson to be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a fun one. I think the other two teams I have, SMU is a bit of a shot in the dark, but I think the one that would be really fun is Nebraska.
Okay.
I thought about that. I just couldn't
get
bring
fucks
myself
with
to
that.
do it. Gross.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
I mean,
Right.
Nebraska is one of those teams that, like, statistically, they should be a lot better than they've been the last couple of years. Now they've actually got who might be the best quarterback in college football this year. That's a bit of a bold take there, but I think Dylan Raiola is going to be really good. I think he can be really good from the jump, too. So I think that's a game changer. Is Scott Frost still there, or they canned his ass?
Matt Rule.
Who's their OC? Because I don't like a Matt Rule offense.
Marcus Satterfield. He was with Rule in Carolina.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
hopefully they let the big dog eat and let him, let it fly. Sling that
I think he's
shit.
been named starter, so I think you're good to go there. All right, guys. Let's bring back a classic game. I don't know if you remember from
Amen.
last season. Let's play a game of Amen or No Man. The point of this game is I'm going to ask true or false questions. My esteemed colleagues over here are going to either say true, which is amen, or false, which is no man. Very simple, and then I'll let them have a moment to explain, okay? But it's all about teams that you think will make the playoffs this year, okay? I'm going to ask, are these teams going to make the college football playoff this year? The Clemson Tigers, amen or nah, man?
No, man.
I was going to say the opposite of whatever Andy said. So I'll say yeah. Because it feels like it's a 50-50 thing to me.
Dabo thinks the transfer portal is one of the 7 deadly sins.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps riding with Kate Klubnik, who
Yep.
was supposed to be really good and just hasn't shown it yet. They're not going to win the ACC because Florida State or Miami is going to win the ACC, and then they're not going to be a ranked item. Nah, man.
It pains me to say yes here, and I'm only doing it because Andy said no. If Andy said yes, I'd say no here. And it's because I think it's really, they're going to be either like first team out or like, that 10, 11, 12 spot, depend on like one game that essentially makes or breaks it for them. I think they have a fair shot. They feel like a coin flip. So hence.
Nah.
I'm going to go with nah, man. I think the way they get in is through the conference championship and give me Florida State or Miami versus.
So you think we got 2 ACC teams that are making the playoffs, and it's going to be FSU, Miami?
Al, that is a great question. Amen or nah, man? The ACC will have more teams in the playoffs than the Big 12.
Nah, man. And this is funny because I'm totally like flipping what I just said. Like I was basically was like, we've got 3 teams that we're getting in here, right? FSU, Miami, and Clemson. But conversely, who in the Big 12 are we talking? The conference champ is going to be
champ.
Potentially
Ooh, I
Oklahoma
love it.
State, Kansas State, Kansas, Utah.
No. Okay, so this is again feels like a coin flip. These are good questions, Matt. You're like
Thanks,
on
man.
your shit. I'm going to say. So the question was, ACC going to have more than Big 12?
The ACC will have more teams in the college football playoffs than the Big 12.
I'm going to say amen. I think it just makes more sense. It's more likely the ACC gets 3 schools in than it is the Big 12 gets 3 schools in. And even if the ACC gets 2 schools in, it's very possible we only get 1 Big 12 team in. If Utah wins the conference, which they will.
Andy?
I'm going to say nah, man. There are only 3 teams that we mentioned in the ACC as having a chance. And we mentioned 4 Big 12 teams. So right there, you've got 4 shots versus 3 shots. The ACC drops off too fast after those 3.
So the ACC has 4 teams in the top 25, NC State at number 25. The Big 12 has 5 teams in the top 25. Outside of the ones we mentioned, Arizona also is messing around there with Noah Fafita and Tetro McMillan, who everyone will be screaming his name on Sundays because he's freaking good.
Who are the 4 you mentioned? You mentioned what? Kansas State, Utah, Kansas, and Iowa State?
Oklahoma State.
Iowa? Oklahoma State.
All right, Tennessee Volunteers. The Nico era is here. They look pretty good. They are projected to potentially have the number one player in the draft in Barnett, I think his name is, the big lineman. The Tennessee Volunteers will make the college football playoff. Amen or nah, man?
Nah, man. The SEC is just too good. If they played in any other conference, maybe. But there are just so many teams ahead of them. I think the committee is going to have some SEC fatigue by the time they get to Tennessee, because they're already going to have put in Georgia and Texas and Alabama, and they're not going to want to put in like a fifth or sixth SEC team.
Yeah, it's a nah man for me as well. This is perfect theater for Tennessee SEC country. Essentially, a 3-loss team is not making the playoffs, right? Like at 12 teams, you're getting all of the undefeateds, all of the 1-losses, and most of the 2-losses. They're going to pick and choose. There might be 1 or 2 3-loss teams that get in over a 2-loss team, depending on who those teams are. I don't think Tennessee is going to lose less than 3 games. This is a perfect way for Tennessee to end the season, maybe on a high note, but still miss out on the playoffs, and then blame it on the fact that the committee couldn't, they felt pressured not to choose all SEC, all Big Ten teams. And so that they got boned by decision makers and not by the quality of their play. That feels like a real Tennessee thing to happen.
I'm going to go with amen. I'm going to buy the Nico hype. I think he's really good. I'm going to buy the Heupel hype, the Josh Heupel. And then I think they're pretty good. I think they're actually set up to succeed here. They got a pretty veteran-laden team. And there's other teams in the SEC that I'm not buying as high, like the LSU Tigers. LSU will get in the playoffs. Amen or not, man?
Yeah, I'll say amen. LSU's always good. Brian Kelly's got his shit figured out. He's had a couple years there. I don't know talent-wise who they have replacing Jaden Daniels, but trust that they have enough talent on that roster to go 9-3 and be the team, the prestige team that they slide in, and maybe they don't make it that hard on the committee and only lose 2.
I think it's going to be Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback, who almost beat Jaden Daniels out to start last year and shockingly didn't transfer. He's really good too, so not going to be a ton of drop off. They play USC, UCLA, Ole Miss, A&M, Bama, Florida, Oklahoma. That's tough. I'm going to say nah, man, just because of that, their schedule. Apart from the schedule, I probably would have said amen.
Nah, man. They're not getting in. I can't take Tennessee and LSU is my thought here. Like there's going to be a couple teams that are definitely going to get in. You're going to have Georgia.
The second you said Nussmeier, I immediately felt bad about my selection.
Nussmeier, man.
Yeah, Nussmeier.
All right, final one. Miami Hurricanes. Amen or nah, man?
I
feel like I have to let Al go first here.
I'm clearing the floor.
And I wish Danny was here for this.
I'm going to say amen. They're in. They're going to be in. The schedule, if they lose more than 2 games.
Schedule.
If they lose more than 2 games, like, Cristobal should be canned. Like, it's a cakewalk schedule. They should probably go undefeated or 1 loss. 2 losses like this, the max. So a 2-loss team's making the playoffs, regardless of the way they win the conference or not.
I'm going to go amen, partially to troll Danny. Hey, bud, hope you're doing good. But partially because I believe in Cam Ward. Cam Ward is really good.
Yeah, I'm definitely going amen. Look, they have 3 games that are of question. I think so much pressure. It's such a big game for both teams, that first game of the year, Florida-Miami, that the pressure is going to be palpable because it means so fucking much for both teams. If Miami gets past that hurdle, I see them having a nice run because the only 2 challenging games remaining on their schedule is Virginia Tech at home. I think Miami will probably get up for it. And Florida State at home, Miami fans will definitely be up for that, right? Everything else, Louisville on the road seems dangerous, and it may be dangerous by the time we get there, but this ain't the same Louisville team from last year. They lost a lot. I guess, quick one. ACC gets 2 teams in the playoff. Amen or nah, man?
Yeah, I think amen. I think at least 2 ACC teams get in.
Yeah, I know I said nah, man, on ACC having more than the Big 12, but yeah, I think they can get 2 in. I just think Big 12 will also have 2 or possibly 3.
I think you're only going to get, I realistically think the SEC and the Big 10 is going to get 8. The ACC and Big 12 will get 2, right? 1 each. Then you're going to have the Group of 5 winner, and we saw it last year, man. We saw that shit last year happen.
I think 8 from the Big 10 and the SEC sounds like a lot. I think the cap is going to be 7. I think they're going to find a way to bring in a team from a different conference or a non-Power 5 team over an 8th team from those 2 conferences. When we're looking at preseason schedules, we're looking at, 8 of these top 10 teams are from those 2 conferences. But we also started this pod off talking about which of those top 10 teams is going to fall out of the top 25.
Yeah.
right? And we picked a team from each of those conferences. So I think someone is going to do the hard part for the decision makers, or make it easy for them by losing too many games to be a lock. And I think 7 is probably the max you get out of those 3 conferences.
I think 3 losses in those conferences is going to be fine for the most part, depending on how challenging the schedule is. If the University of Florida loses only 3 games, they should be in the playoffs. They're not going to lose only 3
They're
games.
They're not going to make a bowl.
That's the hardest schedule in college football history. It is.
I think their win projection is like 4.5. Like,
yeah. So I'm saying, like, not all 9 wins, all 3 losses aren't the same. That would be an incredible 3-loss season,
Yeah. It depends, too, if there are multiple group of 5 teams that go, like, undefeated or 1 loss. That is going to knock out some of those 4th SEC team or Big Ten team. It'll be easy for them to replace it with an undefeated Memphis or whatever, if somebody can run the table. I wouldn't say 7 is the max like Al, but anywhere from 6 to 8 from SEC and Big Ten wouldn't surprise me.
Well, that was a great game at Amen or Nah Man. Thank you for playing. Maybe we'll pick this game up again sometime later.
I love it. Thanks, Matt. I have another Guinness. Should I do a car bomb?
It is. What was the name?
It's unofficial day.
So yeah, you got to.
So as much fun as it is talking about season-long things, as Al prepares his Irish car bomb for unofficial. Can we still call it an Irish car bomb? Is that PC?
You probably shouldn't.
I don't think that is okay. That seems very Protestant of you.
Yeah, it's definitely not okay. But we have actual games to talk about this week. There are 4 starting at noon on Saturday and running up till the last one kicks off at midnight, the end of the day Saturday, technically Sunday morning. And we'll start with the noon one. Matt, we'll clear out. And why don't you tell us your thoughts on your alma mater playing Georgia Tech?
I'm interested to watch this game, of course. I'm kind of in a quandary. I don't know if I like being the standalone game. Florida State plays a lot of standalone games. Our second one will also be a standalone game on Labor Day night. My thoughts are this. Georgia Tech showed marketable improvement last year. They started playing better at the end of the year. Haynes King, who I've made fun of on this podcast before, looks okay. If you don't have the Jimbo Fisher 400-page playbook, he could be a serviceable quarterback. They got good wide receivers also. Georgia Tech's weakness is probably Florida State's greatest strength. Florida State should be a very good running team. I think they're going to be very similar to a Big Ten West team this year, where they're going to run and then play action. A lot of that is going to be in the playbook this year. They have the quarterback that can do that, DJ Uiagalelei. There you go. I think he will be the one that can drive this offense. My big question marks is they lost a ton at the wide receiver position. You don't get Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson in every recruiting class. Those players only come around every once in a while. The kid Malik Benson, the transfer from Alabama, should be good. Their number 2 wide receiver tore his ACL in the spring and will not be there. So we're relying on a bunch of 5'9" guys.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, but when you had a 6'5" and a 6'4" wide receiver, it does make a little bit of a difference. So if Florida State can establish the run and always get positive yards, be in front of the chains in most possessions, I could see this game being 31-17. Pedestrian, not that exciting. If they can't do that and they're relying on the pass game too much, I think Georgia Tech will put up a fight. Good running back, good wide receivers, also Haynes King. I think offense won't be their weakest point, but that run defense is tough. And they also have a pretty good pass defense as well, as far as national rankings. It's that run defense. If they haven't ironed that up, Florida State's going to run, and I'll run a lot because they have. But if I had to pick a number against the spread, probably take Georgia Tech plus 11, plus 11.5. I don't know what I'm going to see from Florida State. There's way too many question marks when you have 10 players drafted and you had to do a lot of shuffling. I trust Mike Norvell to be able to call a good game and manage the game really well. But my thoughts are it's going to be closer than the number it probably should be, but I assume Florida State's going to.
Al, any thoughts?
So I think Matt really just made a great case for the under in this game. I know DJ Uiagalelei led offense that because it's run heavy doesn't mean that it's going to be low scoring.
Yeah.
But there are a whole lot of question marks on the FSU side that make them one-dimensional. I think you add in the fact that DJ has never really been a prolific passer. He's really not the kind of guy who is going to, you really have to fear deep long shots on, and he's not terribly accurate on those balls. So he's more of a game manager type. So I think the question marks and the lack of firepower offensively for FSU to indicate the under, but I think what's going to be more interesting is rooting for Georgia Tech plus 11.5. So I'm gonna take Georgia Tech plus 11.5. But I think I might also end up betting the under. It's 55.5 according to Action. First half total under 28. I'll lock that one in. I'm gonna throw that one on here too. Like that.
I can see that.
Check out the newsletter to see what my official pick is. Right now, I'm leaning FSU, laying the 11.
Hopefully Ireland wins.
Ireland always does.
And we all win. All right. Then we've got 4 o'clock Eastern time, Montana State, New Mexico. Bronco Mendenhall's first game as head coach at New Mexico. And they are dogs to Montana State at home. The line is 10.5.
How are they 11? I can't believe they're a favorite. I am shocked.
New Mexico has a win total of 2.5 this year. They won 4 games last year.
I will say this on record, and I'm not proud of it. I never watched a Montana State game one day in my life.
You should be proud of that.
I clearly there's a betting edge here that I should know about.
Well, let's fix that on Saturday then.
What channel is that on? Is that on television or do I say like?
It's a standalone game on week 0. It's got to be on TV, right?
It is on Fox Sports 1.
Wow.
8 o'clock. My beloved Nevada is back. They are hosting newly minted ACC team SMU. Nevada is getting 27 points with a total of 56.5. This is probably not the right play, but I just missed betting Nevada so much. I'm going to take the 27 points with Nevada. I'm also going to go over 56.5. Just have some fun. Again, probably not a plus EV bet. Football's back, baby.
For the uninitiated, I'm pretty sure Andy bet on Nevada like 10 out of 12 weeks last year.
Something like that.
Don't ask him how he actually shook out on those bets.
They were 6-6 against the spread. I think I went. It wasn't terrible.
I'm gonna do the dumb thing and go Nevada.
Yes.
Even though all the stats says that I shouldn't do that. I would never bet this in the first half. If the first half spread of 14, I would play that with SMU. They're gonna take everyone off the field, and maybe Nevada messes around and backdoors some fun. Gets this within 24 late, something like that.
All right, that's way too much talk about a shitty game that nobody should watch unless you have money on it or went to one of the schools. The last one we've got is at midnight, Delaware State, Hawaii. I think I saw a line out there somewhere, Hawaii minus 37, minus 38. It's going to be hard to find a line on this one. Delaware State playing at midnight on the island. Anybody have thoughts?
I honestly can't even pretend to have a thought on it. Like, I'm trying to come up with a take here. I don't have
I have one. It's
Good,
competing thoughts. So one is you absolutely always lay the points against the team that you do not recognize. If you know sports, like Delaware State, I'm definitely going to lay the points against Delaware State. But on the other side of that, you definitely don't lay 38 points with Hawaii.
No.
Not in the past few years, right? So that means this game is a wash, but hopefully I'm in bed before then.
That's probably the right call. Get up early on Sunday, spend some time with your family. All right. Well, either way, it's going to be good to have football back. 4 games. Probably won't watch them all. Probably watch Georgia Tech, Florida State, and spend some time with the family. But
scoreboard, watch the other ones. But yeah, I would say as a PSA, do keep in mind this is the last weekend where you will not be parked in front of a TV watching football for 48 hours straight. And then adding in a Thursday night and occasional Friday night game and the Monday night game and then probably occasional midweek Wednesday game mid-season. So do something for your wife, for your girlfriend, for your loved ones, for your family, for your
boyfriend,
children.
your husband.
Yep, all the people. Have a great weekend. Do not watch more than the FSU game unless you happen to be in a position where, that's not intruding on anyone else's personal time. So get your brownie points. Earn a few so that can get you coasting through September.
Take your kids to the park, buy your wife something nice. Yeah.
Go outside, be outdoors.
Because it ends. This is the last time you get to be outside the whole year. So know that. You will not be outside until 2025.
Excited. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Unofficial.